My wife called me a rescue dog on a girl's trip I drove her to, while I sat there like furniture. So I packed her stuff, changed the locks, and played the recording when she came back. Her face? Dead silent. You ever get that feeling like your life is just on autopilot? That's how most of my mornings were. I'd wake up before the sun, make coffee in silence, and scroll through headlines while waiting for the pot to finish brewing. No alarms needed. No chaos. Just the kind of peace you learn to savor when you've been married long enough. My name's Tyler. I'm 38 years old, living in Asheville, North Carolina. Most days, I work from home doing freelance design. Not glamorous, but it pays the bills and keeps me sane. That Saturday started just like all the others. I moved quietly around the kitchen while my wife, Skylar, slept upstairs. The cabinets creaked just a little as I reached for her favorite travel mug, muscle memory by now. She always liked her coffee with oat milk and 2 sugars, no more, no less. I didn't even need to think about it. She wandered downstairs an hour later, still in her robe, her long brown hair up in a sloppy bun. "Morning," she said, yawning as she leaned over to kiss my cheek. "So, you busy today?" I should have known right then that something was up. "I was gonna get some stuff done on the truck and maybe go by the hardware store," I said, taking a sip of my own coffee. "Why?" Skylar hesitated for a second, then smiled like she was offering me a favor, not a burden. "Okay, don't kill me, but Jess's husband bailed on driving us to the spa resort this weekend, and it's like 5 hours away, and I was wondering." "No." She laughed like I was joking. "I'm serious," I said. "Come on, babe, please. Just drive us there. I'll even let you play your weird podcasts on the way back," she teased. I should have stood my ground. I should have said I already had plans. But I didn't. I never did when it came to her. "Fine," I muttered, rubbing the back of my neck. "What time are we leaving?" "By 10, she said brightly, already texting the girls. "You're the best." The back seat was chaos before we even hit the highway. 3 women, talking a mile a minute, laughing, opening drinks from some cooler Jess had brought. I turned the music low and kept my eyes on the road. They didn't talk to me. Didn't even really acknowledge I was there. Just used me like I was part of the vehicle. A human GPS with hands on the wheel. Occasionally, Skylar would tap my shoulder and ask me to slow down or turn the AC up, and every time I obeyed without a word. It wasn't the request that bothered me. It was what it represented. Another quiet moment where my needs didn't matter. Where my time, my plans, my comfort all came second to hers. And the worst part? That wasn't anything new. We were about halfway there when the real stink started. The women in the back seat were loose and loud, passing around a bottle of rose like they were on a party bus. Jess had brought one of those mini Bluetooth speakers and was playing a playlist that must have been titled something like Girls Weekend, No Boys Allowed. I kept my hands on the wheel and my eyes on the road. The sun was high by then, heat waves rippling off the asphalt, but the AC was cranked because Skylar always ran hot. My music, my podcasts, any sign of my identity gone. I didn't mind the noise so much. What bothered me was how invisible I felt. They weren't cruel, not at first. Just careless. Like I was some hired driver they didn't have to engage with. They talked about work, gossiped about mutual friends, compared notes on Botox treatments and exfoliators. Then, somewhere near a rest stop in Virginia, the conversation turned to their husbands. My husband, Jess said with a dramatic sigh, won't even look up from his fantasy football long enough to fix the sink. I told mine he could either fold laundry or sleep on the couch, Rachel chimed in. Skylar laughed. "Oh, please. Mine's like a rescue dog. You give him a treat, tell him to sit, and he just does it. Easy to train, easy to control." I felt that like a punch to the throat. The car went quiet for a second, just one beat, like the comments sucked all the air out of the vehicle. Then they all burst into laughter. I didn't laugh. I didn't say anything. I just kept driving, swallowing hard. My grip tightened on the steering wheel, knuckles whitening. My face was burning, and it wasn't from the sun. A rescue dog? Was that really how she saw me? I played it off like I hadn't heard, but inside, something cracked. It wasn't the first time Skylar had made a joke at my expense, but this one hit different. It wasn't playful. It wasn't teasing. It was the truth, wrapped in a punchline. When we finally pulled up to the resort, I got out and started unloading their bags. None of them offered to help. "Thanks, babe," Skylar said, barely looking at me. "Oh, can you wash the sheets before I get home?" "The guest room ones too, just in case Jess stays over next week." She kissed me on the cheek like I was a hotel concierge, then turned away to join her friends. I watched them walk into the lobby, high heels clicking on marble, laughter echoing behind them like I didn't exist. And for the first time, I realized I might not. The drive back felt longer than the one there. Maybe because the car was quiet now. Maybe because there was no one in the back seat to distract me from my thoughts. It started out as a kind of numbness. I just stared at the road, one hand on the wheel, the other resting in my lap. The landscape blurred past, tree after tree, billboard after billboard. but I wasn't seeing any of it. My mind was stuck on that word, rescue dog. The way Skylar said it. The way they all laughed like it was the most accurate description they'd ever heard. At some point, I turned the music on. Not loud, just enough to fill the silence. It didn't help. Every few miles, another memory surfaced. Small things at first. Moments I'd overlooked or brushed off over the years. Like the time she made me cancel a fishing trip with Hugo because her coworker's baby shower meant more. Or last Christmas, when I missed dinner with my parents so we could go to her sister's ugly sweater party. Skylar insisted it was a family obligation, even though I hadn't seen her sister since the year before. And I remembered how she always had some task waiting when I was finally done with work. Can you pick up dry cleaning? Can you fix the garbage disposal? Don't forget to vacuum before my book club comes over. It wasn't that I minded helping. I liked feeling useful. But somewhere along the way, it stopped feeling like helping and started feeling like being managed. I passed a turnoff for a lake Hugo and I used to fish at. We hadn't been out there in almost 2 years. He still texted me sometimes, sent photos of trout he caught or asked if I was free that weekend. I always said no. Skylar had plans, or I had chores, or something always came up. It hit me then. I didn't know the last time I made a decision just for me. When I pulled into our driveway, the house looked the same as it always did. 2-story craftsman, perfectly manicured lawn, the flower beds full because Skylar liked things looking presentable. But when I stepped inside, something felt off. Colder. I walked through the living room, realizing there was almost nothing in it that felt like mine. The furniture, the art on the walls, the color of the curtains, even the bookshelf was filled with novels Skylar liked, not one of my old sci-fi paperbacks in sight. I used to have a corner in the den for my tools and guitar. Now it was a yoga nook with candles and Himalayan salt lamps. I checked the laundry room. The sheets she asked me to wash were already waiting in a pile on the floor. That was her way of reminding me silent, casual, entitled. I started the wash, then stood there for a while, staring at the spinning drum. I had a life, didn't I? Once? It sure didn't feel like it anymore. I couldn't sleep that night. Not even close. I lay there staring at the ceiling, Skylar's voice playing on loop in my head. He's like a rescue dog. Over and over. Around 2 in the morning, I finally got up and went downstairs. The house felt sterile in the dark, too neat, too quiet. I made a cup of coffee even though I didn't need it, just needed something to do with my hands. Then I sat at the kitchen counter, phone in hand, thumb hovering over her Instagram icon. I shouldn't have looked. I knew that. But I did. It started with harmless scrolling. Pictures from the spa, Skylar and her friends in robes, holding wine glasses, lounging by the pool like they hadn't just humiliated me the day before. The captions were what got me. Girls who get spoiled know their worth. And another one, trained him well, #husband goals. I froze. That one had over 50 likes. Comments from her friends saying things like, OMG yes, teach me your ways, and Skylar wins again. I clicked through her tagged photos. There were more. Screenshots of messages in group chats, jokes about me doing chores without being asked, about how Skylar never even has to raise her voice, because I just get it. And then I saw one from Jess's account, a photo of a list titled Skylar's Husband Handbook, with rules like always say yes, never question a plan, and he folds laundry better than the maid. They thought it was funny. It wasn't. I opened her text messages. I knew I shouldn't, but I couldn't help it anymore. I needed to see what was real. There were threads with Jess, Rachel, a couple other friends I only half knew. And there it was, conversation after conversation, calling me domesticated, passive, predictable. One even said, I swear, you've trained that man better than my dog. Skylar replied, takes patience, but totally worth it. It's like breaking in a wild horse, except this one pays the bills and makes the bed. That one punched me in the stomach. Then I saw a message from her to someone named Lacey. It was longer, more serious. Skylar wrote, sometimes I wonder if I love him, or if I just love how easy he is. He never fights me on anything. I barely have to ask. Lacey had replied, girl, that's the dream. You're living it. But the worst part wasn't the jokes. It was the bank app. On a hunch, I checked our joint account. I kept a pretty close eye on it, but I'd never thought to dig into transfers. That night, I did. And I saw it. Every couple of weeks, small amounts, 300 here, 500 there, being transferred into an account I didn't recognize. Repeatedly. Always under vague descriptions, wellness fund, groceries, girls trip. So I did some digging. Pulled old statements. Cross-referenced her Venmo. She was siphoning money. Not a ton at a time, but consistently. And she'd been doing it for months. I sat there, phone in one hand, coffee cold beside me, stomach twisted in a way I couldn't explain. Not just betrayal. Something worse. I'd known something wasn't right. I just didn't want to face it. But now I had no choice. Skylar wasn't just thoughtless. She was strategic. And I let it happen. Until now. I called Hugo the next morning. He answered on the second ring, voice groggy. Ty? Everything okay? I didn't even know how to start. I stared at the ceiling for a second, lying on the couch because I couldn't bring myself to go back to bed. I think I'm done, man. He didn't ask with what. Just said, tell me everything. So I did. I told him about the drive, the joke, the texts, the money siphoning, all of it. I expected him to interrupt. Get mad. Say something like, I told you she was controlling. But he didn't. When I finished, he let out a slow breath. Well, he said, took you long enough. That stung more than I expected, but it wasn't wrong. We talked for over an hour, and by the time we hung up, I had a plan. First step was the bank. I opened a new account in just my name and moved my savings into it. Not everything at once. Didn't want to trigger any alerts or cause suspicion, but enough to start separating what was mine from what was ours. Then I started small. Canceled a couple streaming services Skylar had signed up for. Switched my phone plan off the family bundle. Opened a private P.O. box. Each action felt like unclipping a little piece of the leash. That afternoon, I went through the house while Skylar was still gone. Started boxing up things that were mine. Old fishing gear, a few tools, my guitar, things I hadn't seen or touched in months because she kept rearranging or tidying them away. I found my old hoodie shoved in a laundry bin behind the dryer. Still smelled like dust and detergent. I folded it and put it in the first box. By evening, I was mentally exhausted but clearer than I had been in years. Hugo stopped by with pizza. We sat in the garage with the door half open, the boxes between us, cold air blowing through. You know she's gonna blow up, right? He said between bites. When she realizes what's happening. Yeah, I said. I'm counting on it. You ready for that? I stared out at the street. The neighborhood looked peaceful, lawns trimmed, windows glowing with warm light. I don't think I've ever really been ready for anything, I said. I just do what I'm told and keep moving. Hugo nodded. Well, not anymore. We clinked beer bottles. The sound echoed lightly off the concrete walls. It felt like a toast to something I couldn't quite name yet. Freedom, maybe. That night, before I went to bed, I looked around the house again. Still clean. Still quiet. But this time, I didn't feel like a guest in my own life. I felt like a man finally starting to move out of someone else's shadow. It wasn't everything yet, but it was a beginning. Skylar came home on Sunday evening, right around 6, wheeling her pink luggage behind her like she'd just returned from Paris instead of a spa in Virginia. I was waiting in the living room, sitting on the edge of the couch with both hands folded in my lap. The locks had already been changed. She tried her key once, then again, then started banging on the door like I'd locked her out by accident. I opened it slowly, just enough to look her in the eye. What the hell? She snapped, already pushing her way inside. Why doesn't my key work? I stepped back without answering. Let her come in. Let her see it. The boxes. The clear, quiet order in the house. Her things, neatly packed and stacked near the front door. Labeled. Sorted. Nothing dramatic. Skylar stopped short. She looked around, then back at me, her face twitching between confusion and anger. What is this? I packed your stuff, I said simply. She blinked. What? You're not staying here. The silence that followed wasn't long, but it was thick, like air gone solid. Is this a joke? She asked, her voice high, incredulous. Because it's not funny. It's not a joke. You're seriously kicking me out? Her tone turned sharp. Over a weekend trip? I didn't move. It's not about the trip. She laughed once, bitter. Then what? You mad I called you a rescue dog? Jesus, Tyler, it was a joke. Everyone laughed. I didn't, I said. And I wasn't the only one who didn't think it was funny. I reached into my hoodie pocket and pulled out my phone. Tapped a few times. Then played it, the voice memo I'd recorded in the car. Her voice, crystal clear, saying, mine's like a rescue dog. Easy to train. Then the laughter. Skylar's face dropped. Her lips parted like she was going to deny it, but the sound filled the room. She lunged forward and snatched the phone from my hand, hitting pause. Are you seriously spying on me now? She said, eyes flashing. No, I said calmly. I just wanted proof. So you couldn't twist it later. Oh, come on, she said, pacing. You're being insane. Everyone jokes about their spouses. You're acting like I cheated on you or something. I stared at her. You think this is about a joke? I asked. You've been mocking me for years. Dismissing me. Controlling every part of my life while pretending it was normal. Skylar's arms crossed, the way they always did when she got defensive. I'm not controlling. You moved my stuff out of our room without asking, I said. You took money from our joint account and funneled it into a private one. You told your friends you trained me. Her eyes narrowed. You went through my phone? I didn't answer. I didn't need to. The look on my face said enough. You had no right. And you had no respect, I cut in. So here we are. Skylar's voice cracked as she shifted into something softer. Can we just talk about this? You're overreacting. We don't need lawyers or drama. Let's just... I already have a lawyer, I said, reaching into a drawer beside the couch. I handed her a business card. You can give them a call when you're ready. The soft turned to venom in seconds. You're making a huge mistake, she hissed. You're walking away from a marriage because you finally grew a spine and didn't like what you saw? I didn't say a word. Just walked over to the front door and held it open. She stared at me for a long second, like she was waiting for me to back down. I didn't. Finally, she picked up one of the boxes, lips pressed into a thin line. This isn't over, she muttered as she walked out. I know, I said. But it was starting to be. It was 2 days after Skylar moved out when Laura showed up at my door. She was holding her phone in both hands like it was radioactive. Laura had been one of Skylar's closest friends for years, bridesmaid at our wedding, part of the spa trip, always around. But we hadn't talked much one-on-one. So when I saw her standing there, eyes wide, I knew it wasn't a social visit. I wasn't sure if I should come, she said, stepping into the hallway. But after everything that's happened, you deserve to see this. She pulled up her phone and handed it to me without another word. It was a screenshot. A long text thread between Skylar and someone saved as boss. My stomach tightened. It started off with flirty emojis and harmless banter. Then it turned into something else. Messages about hotel meetups, inside jokes I didn't recognize, Skylar complaining about me. He's too easy. It's boring. I don't even have to try. Well, that's why you need someone who challenges you, he replied. Laura swiped to another screenshot. Then another. And another. Each one a different conversation. Different timestamps. Some from weeks ago. Some from months. There was even a selfie Skylar had sent, taken in our bathroom, judging by the tile, with the caption, waiting for him to go to bed. I felt something hollow open up in my chest. I had no idea, I said, my voice coming out quieter than I intended. Laura nodded slowly. I didn't either. At least not until this weekend. I thought she just vented a lot. But after that comment in the car, and the way she treated you, I started paying attention. Why are you showing me this now? Because I'm done being quiet, she said. She's been toxic for years. I thought it was just her sense of humor, or the way couples bicker. But after what she said about you, and then all this, it's not just petty. It's cruel. I sat down on the armrest of the couch, still holding her phone. Laura crossed her arms. And for what it's worth, you're not the one who should feel embarrassed. She is. I looked up at her. Thank you. She hesitated at the door. I know I should have said something sooner. I didn't want to get involved. But seeing how she treated you, like a puppet she could parade around, I couldn't ignore it anymore. As soon as she left, I pulled out my laptop and copied every screenshot she sent me into a folder. I wasn't angry anymore. Not the way I expected to be. I just felt done. When Skylar texted me later that night, we need to talk. I miss you. I didn't respond. Instead, I opened the folder again, scrolled through every lie, every secret, every cruel little joke she made about the man who drove her to spas and folded her laundry and paid her bills. She didn't just betray me. She underestimated me. And for the first time in years, I knew exactly what I had to do. The next time Skylar came by, she didn't knock. She just showed up like she still had a right to walk in. But this time, the door didn't budge. She rang the bell twice, then stood there, arms crossed, jaw tight. I opened the door and stepped out onto the porch. Kept the screen between us. I need to come inside, she said flatly. No, I said. We can talk here. She huffed. Seriously? You're still playing this game? I didn't answer. I waited. She shifted on her heels. Look, I know things got a little tense, but I've had time to think. We can work this out. We don't have to drag lawyers into it. I held up the business card again. You'll need this. She didn't take it. Tyler, she said, with that old practiced softness. It doesn't have to be like this. We've been together 8 years. We can fix it. We just need a reset. No one else needs to get involved. No, I said again, steady. We're past that. Her eyes narrowed. You're really going to throw away everything? Just like that. I crossed my arms. I didn't throw it away. You did. She rolled her eyes. It was a joke, Tyler. The rescue dog thing? Come on. You're blowing this way out of proportion. I didn't flinch. It wasn't just a joke. It was a reflection of how you see me, of how you talk about me when you think I'm not listening. And then the money, the messages, the affair. She looked down for the first time. Didn't deny it. I continued, voice low and calm. I gave you everything. My time, my support, my trust. You turned it into a game. I didn't mean for it to go this far. But it did, I said. And now I'm done. She didn't say anything. The silence dragged. She blinked fast, trying to keep her expression composed, but the edge of panic was there now. What am I supposed to do? She asked finally. Just walk away with nothing? You walked away a long time ago, I said. This is just the paperwork. She sniffed, rubbed her arms. People are going to talk. They already are. That made her wince. She tried one last time. We could go to counseling. Try to rebuild. I'll delete the account. I'll be better. I nodded slowly. Maybe. For someone else. Skylar stood there, stunned. Like no one had ever said no to her in a way that stuck. Like she didn't know how to process someone who wasn't afraid to walk away. I gave her the card again. This time she took it. No hug. No final plea. She just turned and walked to her car, slamming the door harder than she needed to. And just like that, the porch was quiet. I went back inside and closed the door. Stood there for a second, listening to the silence. It felt good. The next few weeks were messy. Paperwork, phone calls, unraveling 8 years of life together. But it got easier. I reconnected with Hugo. Visited my parents for the first time in a year. I cleaned out the den and turned it back into my space. Set up my guitar, my tools. Even found an old poster from a fishing trip and pinned it to the wall. I wasn't in a rush to date again. But I didn't feel bitter, either. Just free. For the first time in a long time, I was allowed to want things. To say no. To say yes, for me. The last time I saw Skylar was in the parking lot of the courthouse when the papers were signed. She didn't wave. I didn't either. And that was the most peaceful goodbye of my life. The weeks after the divorce moved both slower and faster than I expected. Some days flew by, packing up what little was left, signing papers, untying our finances one subscription, one insurance policy at a time. Other days, I'd just sit in the garage with the door halfway open, sipping coffee and trying to get used to the quiet. It was a different kind of quiet now. Not the stiff silence of avoidance. Not the tiptoe kind where you're afraid to say the wrong thing. This silence was mine. I remember standing in the middle of the living room one afternoon, looking around. The space felt bigger somehow. Lighter. Skylar's furniture was gone, and her perfectly coordinated throw pillows, her decorative candles, her white noise machines. What was left was plain, but real. I bought a secondhand recliner off Facebook Marketplace. It didn't match anything, but it was comfortable as hell, and it was the first thing I'd picked out without having to ask someone else's opinion in years. The first weekend I had truly to myself, I took a drive. Not for anyone. Not to shuttle anyone else around. Just me. I ended up back at Lake Junaluska, the same place Hugo and I used to fish. I sat on the dock for almost 2 hours without checking my phone once. When I got home that night, I took Skylar's name off every shared account. Called the credit card company. Changed passwords. Set new boundaries, not just in my bank account, but in my life. I said no to dinner with my boss when I didn't feel like going. I ignored a text from Skylar asking if I wanted to just talk sometime, and instead called my sister, who I hadn't seen in over a year. We talked for an hour. About real stuff. I didn't tell her everything. Not yet. But I didn't lie either. One night, I made dinner for Hugo and his wife. Just burgers and chips, nothing fancy. But it was the first time in years I cooked for someone without being told how I should do it or whether I was using too much garlic. I even got back on a dating app, not because I was desperate, but because I finally felt like someone worth knowing again. And when I wrote my bio, I didn't try to be clever. I just said, recently divorced. Rediscovering life. Looking for someone real. The responses surprised me. A few conversations started. A couple fizzled. One stuck. Her name's Adrian. She's a teacher. Our first date's next week. I don't know if it'll go anywhere, and that's okay. Because I'm not rushing anymore. I'm not bending. I'm not folding myself into someone else's idea of enough. This past year ripped a lot of things open, but it also let the light in. I used to think being a good partner meant doing whatever it took to make someone else happy. Now I know better. Being good to someone doesn't mean losing yourself in the process. I'm 38 years old, and for the first time since I can remember, I know who I am. I'm not a rescue dog. I'm not a placeholder. I'm not someone's backup plan. I'm Tyler, and I finally chose me.